Hello, Jennifer Atkins here, adaptive yoga specialist. And not surprisingly, many of my students over the years have come to me with low back or more specifically sacral issues, pain. And I can completely identify because that has been one of my chronic issues since childhood. Really, as a competitive gymnast, I must have really damaged that area, and so it has required constant upkeep and certainly, practices that I've refined. And when I don't do them enough, boy, do they body lets me know. It says, okay, you have got to remember to readjust, restabilize, and sometimes reset. Because so many low back into the sacrum pain issues come from this whole collection of what can be called sacral dysfunction. And there's many different forms that it can take. But mine, and I'd say the majority of the people that I have supported to find relief in these areas, have a more mobile sacrum, SI joint connection with the pelvis than is really healthy. You do need some movement there. That's why it is a joint connection there. I mean, it's not a solid plate. The sacral bone itself, pretty solid, and the pelvic bone, absolutely, but then there's some joints that are in there that do provide for some mobility. That is important, but not hypermobility. And that's what leads to a lot of our sacral dysfunction and pain issues. So what I'm going to say and show you now is a collection of exercises that I have extracted from some things that have come to me from physical therapists, and then refined them a bit more from my adaptive yoga perspective, and then working with so many different bodies, including my own, to say like, wow, we condense these into a few very specific ways of going about the process of first resetting your sacrum that is very likely gone off kilter, and then restabilizing it there when it's been reset. This can happen on the very first time you do it, but it rarely does. It usually takes a number of attempts and working through maybe a few days, maybe a few weeks. Maybe it's something you want to really add to your regular regime to keep you from being distracted and limited from that sacral dysfunction and pain. So I will be demonstrating and explaining at the same time, because I found it is very difficult to explain this. And while some of these positions look very similar to other yoga poses, positions, stretches, if you will, the way that you need to be specifically engaging and paying attention and breathing is different, and it may feel a little bit awkward. You may need a few trial runs before you start to feel like, oh, I am feeling it there, and what is that feeling? So there's a lot of assessment going on throughout the whole thing. Maybe all of these exercises now that I'm going to demonstrate for you will be like, yes, this is good. Maybe a few will be like, ooh, I don't know, that's kind of ouchy. But the other ones, or at least one of these, will be like, oh, that's it, that's good. Now, a few different effects can come about from this. And one is simply getting more attention and awareness and blood flow into that area, and finding a way to support it and maybe balance it out better, so that the next things that you do will be less painful, and you may have hopefully some more lasting effects. Then the other part is the learning how to stabilize when you have rebalanced or reset your sacrum in a more appropriate position. Then you need to be able to stabilize it there with all these deep core muscles and things that I've been teaching, for months and months, years and years, because it is so important. So getting your sacrum reset has great benefits to it, and you will find relief eventually when you do. But if you're not able to stabilize it in that reset position, then as soon as you get up and start moving around, it's just going to go and just go back out where it was, kind of thing. And so we got to really go with both approaches: mobility, stability, and of course all that great body awareness being applied and continued on into your everyday activities and movements. So if you would like, just watch, please. If this is your first time getting an idea of what it is, because like I said, it might look similar in some ways, but there's some very, very different things going on, and I'd love for you to observe me first. I'll explain it, and then you can try for yourself. So one added benefit, if you can find a place in your house where you can lay down comfortably on a firm surface, okay, and maybe at least some of the times when you go through these exercises, you are able to place both of your feet right up against a wall. So probably like the baseboard, or something of the wall. If you're able to create that scenario, that has some nice benefits to it. You don't have to do it that way every time, but if you can kind of be looking around your house for a place that you can lay down flat all the way on a firm surface, so not on a bed, and then have your feet up against a wall. Now, for viewing purposes, I'm going to be using my footstool as my wall, so you can get the idea of what I'm talking about. But once you get yourself seated and kind of in a place where you feel like, okay, now as you move on down to your back, and make sure you do that safely, what I would like for you to be able to do, if you do have that wall in connection under your feet, then as you recline and lay on back, and get any little shifts and movements that you need to be comfortable here, and it may be, as it is for me, not so comfortable in my sacrum at first, but boy do things change over the course of this process for me. And so if you have the wall there below your feet, I'd like you to feel like you have your legs very parallel to each other, so from hip joints, knee joints, ankles, and feet, everything is quite parallel, as well as your feet to whatever degree you can that's not painful. You don't want you to be tweaking out any of your joints. So if your toes want to go out a little bit, that's okay. Mine have been able to gradually go a little bit more parallel, and they love that support underneath the feet. Then with that, engage and press more kind of your heels than your toes into that wall. Get a press into it and feel whatever engagement and any sensations that may come from just doing that. Take 3 to 5 full breaths as you do that. Press. And then when you're complete with that, pay attention. Any signs, any signals, any awarenesses, kind of try to categorize those. Is that pain? Is that pressure? Is that relief? And keep tabs on all those things as you go through this whole series. Next, I'll have you bend your knees, plant your feet, try to refine your pelvic tilt so that it's just right for comfort and stability. And then I'll have you pick up one foot and grab a hold. So what we often do in class is do this knee hugging in stretch. That's not what we're going for here. We are going to actually keep the leg lifted more away from the belly or the chest. You're going to reach up with long lengthened arms and grab a hold over the top of the knee and maybe your shin if you've got arms that are long enough to reach there. And then let your arms be lengthened out all the way, but don't let your shoulders lift away from the floor, because from here you are going to start to engage in a very specific way from your hip, low back, and glutes to push your leg away from you while you resist with your hands and arms. So you're trying to push your knee more out and away from you, but you are being held back by your hands and your arms. The engagement here is what's important. Take about 3 to 5 full breaths. Keep that press going out, and then relax and lower. Take a few moments, breathe, and notice any differences you feel from one side to the other. Maybe it's the hips, the pelvis, maybe it's right there in the sacrum. I know I'm really feeling it on my lefty, which is my more problematic side, so I felt that, but not in a painful way. It's being flushed with blood and all kinds of things that are kind of helping to prepare it to reset itself, hopefully here at some point in this process. Then you want to switch to the other side. It's often one side of the pelvis or sacrum that is the problematic one, but if you find that it's not painful, then get that good strong hold. Once again, push out from your hip, your glute, pushing the knee right out in that position, and breathe. 3 to 5 full, complete breaths. You might do a little quivering because there's a lot of resistance and engagement going on here. There's supposed to be. And then relax and lower back on down. Again, reassess. Does anything feel different? Similar? Any new awarenesses? All that you really want to take in. Next, there is something similar where you'll be extending your, say, right leg, as if you started with your left leg as I did, and then do a very similar thing. But with this lower leg lengthened, there's going to be some different effects. So be paying attention, engage, let your arms pretty much lengthen out with that good grasp, and then push out into the hands. You're trying to push your leg away from you, but your hands and your arms are holding you back. You breathe, and then relax and lower that foot. Take a few breaths, assess, make any little adjustments you may need, and then let's try the other side. This one may not work as well for you. Like I said, I just hope that one of these options in this series will really work for you, and you may find gradually, if not right away, that they all do contribute to something that is towards what this whole series is about. So grasping strongly, keep the backs of both shoulders on the floor, and then engage, pressing your leg into your hands and beyond, but your hands are not going to let it go any further. Your arms are holding steady, and you are breathing. And then once you've done your 3 to 5 breaths, if there's pain that comes in sooner, then you know you want to come out of it sooner. Pain, we're not going for a pain response. That is good information. If you do get an ouch real effect there, make note of that, because that could give you a strong indicator of what your sacral dysfunction really is for you, and it can be really, really unique, and then we can start to zero in on really what's going to be best, most beneficial for you. Okay, so back to center and balance it out, make any little movements and assess. Anything different? Anything new? Do you feel more balanced? This is another thing that I'd like to come along, because remember, I call them sacrum setters, and it often is that one sacrum is lifted or rotated a little bit off from the other one. So this process of resetting is very much letting them shift back into a very balanced position within that pelvic area. And the joints may have some resistance. There may be some discomfort at first because they've maybe been off kilter for a long time, but allowing that, so that's why I like the engagements, the breathing, that allows that blood flow, everything to facilitate eventually that sacrum just settling back in. And for some people, it's actually like a clunk. I mean, it almost feels like ka-choom. But for most of us, it's quite subtle, and it sets the sacrum back into a more balanced and appropriate alignment that we hope to maintain as long as possible, but we may have to come back and do these quite a bit more. Another form that may work very nicely for some, if not at least most of you, is our figure 4 position. So you may want to make sure that you've got your hip rotation and things a little bit warmed up and prepared, maybe doing our seated hip mobility things in a chair first, and then knowing that you can support your leg in this position, okay, connected to your other thigh by the knee. I do a good strong flex to my foot, so I keep my ankle and my knee joint quite stable, and then again, both shoulder blades stay on the floor. Placing, say if you're on your left leg here, the figure 4 position, place your left hand anywhere it can reach, pretty lengthened out on your inner thigh or inner knee without any pain. There should be no pain in any of these joints. If there is, you should probably change the angle of the knee, try that. And that means you may have more of a bend of your elbow, and that's okay. But again, when it comes to the leverage of the engagement that you're working at towards here, if you can get a pretty good strong straight arm, because this time your hand and arm is going to be pushing away as you are attempting to draw your knee in closer to you. And it's this very specific engagement. Go in very gently and subtly at first. Make sure that's not really tweaky or painful, and then do your breaths. So it's hard to see it from the outside, and it's easy to get this confused, but I am resisting by pushing away all the way through this arm and hand, and then taking this whole leg, which starts initiating in the hip area, gluteals all through here. Then you start to try pushing this leg, this knee, inward here while resisting and holding it out at that position. So it's isometric. It's not really going anywhere at all, but everything is trying to make that movement inward, but it's not going there. We're engaging in a very specific way, holding it steady and breathing. You may feel something while you're doing it. If it doesn't feel good, start to ease out of it. If it is, take those 5 full breaths and then ease out of it. Relax here for a few moments. See if there's anything that's come to your awareness. Bring that foot back on down. Do a little assessment here. I right now feel very different from my left to my right side. Good information. Kind of try to really focus in. Where is that difference for me? And then try it on the other side. Maybe very different on one side than the other. All of it's good information, and if there's any pain response, you're going to honor that and come out of it right away, or at least ease into a more subtle position. So now it's figure 4, flex to the foot. I like that for the ankle and the knee support. A good strong hand position on my inner knee or thigh, wherever you can reach. Backs of the shoulders stay on the floor, and then pushing away with my arm, I'm drawing this whole leg inward towards me strongly. So all these deep core stabilizers are having to work, and some very specific stabilizers are on to pull your knee inward while it's being resisted with this arm and this hand. Breathing. Noticing if you get a pain response, ease out, get a little more subtle, and if you still need to come all the way out, bring the foot down. But if you can stay in that for those 5 full breaths, and then release, maybe stay here for a moment, kind of letting things relax, soften. That was nice. And then bring the foot back down, and again, similar kind of assessment. Okay, so that's number 3 in this series. That may be good for now, and you don't want to overdo it. Like I said, I felt a little increase in sacral discomfort when I first did this the first time, and even the second time. But after that, the third time and more, I was like, oh, this is good. And my body awareness, the strength, the stability, and then refining my pelvic tilt in just the right way to support that reset of my sacrum. And so it's a process, but I think it's well worth it. One more that I really like is double legs. And so similar to the one that we did before with just your single legs, you're going to reach up and wrap your hands around each knee or shin, whatever you can reach easily here. And then remember, this one's going to be the outward push of the legs while you resist that outward positioning with your hands and arms, not letting the legs, the knees go further away. So get that sense of balance in your sacrum, in the backs of the pelvis. That's why you always want to be on a very firm surface when you do this. And then start to engage from your deep core. You'll feel a lot of things coming on, and push your knees away. Oh my gosh, that's a really intense sensation that comes into my sacrum, but I've learned to trust it now. I didn't at first, but I've learned to trust it now because I am resisting with my hands, engaging in such a way. And the delightful thing for me is it feels very similar from my right to left side. When I first started doing this, it was very much one side and not the other, and I felt like, okay, this is not right. And so gradually over time, though, I've really to learn to re-engage and support each side of my sacrum. So you always want to start with one at a time. That's a good part of assessing. Is it one side more than the other? Is one lifted up more than the other? Is one, that kind of thing. But then kind of coming around to the point where you want to really engage both at the same time. So that means both SI joints, both sides of the sacrum, hips and pelvis, and then after you've done that, and at any time along the way here, it could have just reset for you. And it may be very, very subtle, almost indetectable, or it could have been a really obvious, like ka-chunk. Oh my gosh, my sacrum just went into where it was supposed to be. If you have the wall that was there below your feet, you may want to do a quick reassessment. And I'm always amazed when I do. When I get my feet into the wall and get everything real parallel, kind of do a little gentle press into the feet, especially the heels, okay? And I feel so much different in my sacrum now after doing all that series than I did when I first did this, when I laid down and pressed into the wall. I'm also working my hips and pelvis into what feels like a more appropriate pelvic tilt that I'm going to really stabilize now. I've really got to emphasize the stability, because you may have just reset your sacrum, but if you can't stabilize it there, then the next move you make is probably going to go out whack again. So then you engage here. If you don't have the wall below your feet, just flex your feet and really try to press out through your heels. So you're engaging, and then working your pelvis ever so subtly into what feels like a good position, that your sacrum is happy and it's engaged all the way through. It's supported. Your internal girdle, if you will, is supporting that. Now, here's the very important part. We want to maintain that all the way through the transition that brings you out of this exercise. So get back to knees bent, feet planted. Make sure you're re-engaged. Sometimes you kind of lose it in between shifting of the body positioning. So always come back to it. And now I want you to, as much as you possibly can, roll to your side as a full unit of your whole body. So do not spinal twist. Do not let your shoulders stay here and let your legs go off to the sides. Try to keep everything here like you're a robot, and you are not going to let things shift out the hips from the chest and shoulders. We want to try to stabilize all through there, and then ease over. This takes strength too, but that's part of the point. Ease over onto your side, get everything as aligned here still as you can, and start to lift your way on up. Maybe a seated position, but try again not to get too out of kilter here. Everything's still moving or supported in a single unit, hips, pelvis, chest, shoulders. Then with that all still very much in place, come to your hands and knees. Stay strong, stay stable. Feel your sacrum being supported and nourished. And this is where you would start to either crawl your way up a little bit closer to a sturdy piece of furniture, and then with both hands up on that piece of furniture, you would then be placing one foot very mindfully with all that deep core stability, and getting the other foot right underneath you, and taking at least 3 full breaths as you stand steady, feet right underneath you, just like as if you were pressing into the wall like you were on the floor, and lengthen up and feel good posture for sure, but also feel that sacral low back area and stabilize it and help it stay there. Help it be supported so that when you start to take your next moves and walk and do what you need to do for the rest of your day, that's going to stay with you. It may not through the whole day. I know mine did not, but the more you do this, the more of the awareness of what is a better stability for you to maintain as you go about your daily movements and work that sacrum in a way that hopefully feels like it's reset in the right position, which takes the floor, a firm surface, and at least that series that I just showed you. There's more to it, and if you want to reach out to me and tell me more specifically what you are dealing with, I would love to support you, and we could refine things, or I might include some alternative things that I did not hear that might be even better for you. So I hope this is helpful. Please feel free to review it as many times as you need. I really want you to think about the whole process. It requires a lot of mindfulness, but it works. So for now, thank you and namaste.